Hello, Chris. How are you doing?
Hi, Paul. How's it going?
Okay, we're all good today, and apart from got a bit of a fan on because it's very warm, but great to see everybody in chat. And once again, every Tuesday, thanks for the support. And it's been a busy week, and I think everybody else will have been the same, won't they? And no different for you.
Yeah, it's horrendous. The weather. I don't know about anybody else, but it's horrendous. I cannot sleep properly. I don't know. I've said it before. I know it sounds a bit conspiratorial, but it's not even that warm outside. So why is it so warm inside at night?
Well, it's warm.
Really mild.
Yeah. Well, we've got to deal with it. I suppose we'd be moaning if it were cold, wouldn't we? So where we're at tonight, I don't know how many people are in chat. Oh, we're going on for 100 people, so that's great. And obviously, it's me and Chris tonight, guys. So feel free to just put your questions in capital letters. We might not have all answers, but between us, we might be able to kick a few ideas about, and that includes you guys as well because it's your show. So
I'll tell you what, Paul. Sure, I'll make a quick apology actually on behalf of me and you, just because we were asking for people for ideas. They've given us their ideas, and we've just been that busy. You've had your stuff going on at your end, and I certainly have. So, not. I know it sounds like another excuse, guys, but we are definitely going to sort one of the subjects out for next Tuesday, for sure. So it'll either be, what do you think, Pal, the fair or crop circles, one or the other.
The fair or crop circles, we'll go for it, and we'll see if we can, generate a bit of interest. The fair is a subject that fascinates me. I mean, I'll just throw that out to you, Chris, and people in chat. We'll get back to that in a minute, but let's just have a quick name count here, or a few people. And we've got Dragonborn, Mike Disabled, Welshman, Jojo, Liam. Let's have a look. Nickname, Andy H, David Hunt, Al Durham. Good to see you, Al. With Jack, I think Linny will be in. Mrs. Linny, Mia Girl, Rick Bennett, Rivington Pike. That's Lee, Jonathan Chapman, and I see Mark Ollie. Mark Ollie on crop circles because it didn't come up in caps, Jonathan.
I thought about Mark. Yeah, that's a point.
You make a great point. Zeno's there, Welsh Rebel, Steve Collin, the Faye, excellent. Yeah, thank you. And we'll do a bit of a name check later, guys. But the
funny that. I mean, I just mentioned to Lorraine then about. I said I'm sure we know someone on crop circles. I said, and there he is.
Yeah,
he's a good guy, Mark. He's a nice guy as well, Mark.
He's what you see is what you get kind of fella, and he's really accommodating. So either you or me tomorrow will reach out to him. Stan Smith, there you go, Stan.
No, Stan.
Martin Abbas, good to see you, Martin.
Yeah.
So the fair. It's a subject I don't know about other people. You guys in chat or you, Chris, but it's not something I ever invested a lot of time or thought in. But it's always been there, hasn't it? It's been there before we started talking about UFOs and everything else. When we talk about unexplained phenomena, the Fae has been there long before most of it.
In one form or another, I reckon it probably has, yeah. And these traditions have passed down through folklore, and I guess you would argue that in places like the States, Native Americans, Aboriginals, and in Australia, you probably get a similar name for these things. I'm not sure about Aboriginals actually, but I'm pretty sure that you do. In the Native American law. So it's like you say, it's worldwide, and there's definitely something to it. What it is exactly, that's what fascinates me, because it's a bit like the ET hypothesis. ET hypothesis now has got this bloody grey alien with black eyes attached to it, and it's just the symbol of the ET hypothesis now, isn't it? And an alien abduction as well. And for the fair, it's the fairies. It's just this British modern thing that's been attached to it that it struggles to shake off at times. And I think that's probably what made me avoid it for that reason. Yeah.
Modern cultures in recent times shaped it with films and movies. Everybody thinks if you talk about fairies or the fae, they think it's some little winged creature that's fluttering between flowers and sat on mushrooms. And it's not necessarily that. I thought to myself, let's play with the idea that these things are real, these elemental beings are real. And I know I've said this before, but if they are tied to the land and their affinity is the earth, and that's where they reside somehow, I don't know, in this other realm. So Chris Turner goes in, Paul Sinclair goes in, so a group of people in chat go in, and we light a fire, and we sit round and we make noise all night. And somebody thinks, how do we know that if these beings are real, that they think, let's present us something else. Let's drive these people out of this forest, out of this woodland. You know, the talk that the Fae can shapeshift. Well, if that's the, how do we know that when these things, these cryptid creatures that can glide and seemingly move just frictionless through the woodland and these lights, what if it's them?
It has to be up there with the rest of the possibilities. I mean, I guess, look, you could argue the possibilities are endless, but it's certainly got credence in the sense that it's got historic. Yeah, there's a historic data to look at one way or another. And whatever people, whatever these skeptical people think, there is still merit in some of the historic, folklorish tales and data. If you could argue that these tales get passed down orally over centuries and centuries, and yeah, probably get
twisted.
Yeah. But the native, actually, saying that, the Native Americans insist that the oral traditions do not get twisted at all. Apparently, they're very, very strict that the story stays the same. But I think
that would be like maybe talking about religions, and no one religion here. I mean, just religions in general. If the stories from biblical texts get tweaked and altered, it's usually to fit the narrative of the person or the group of people that are doing it. And it could be the same for everything, couldn't it? You can't imagine that stories from folklore haven't been slightly altered and slightly embellished, but I still think that where I stay with as the truth in these stories from folklore is simply because the stories from folklore and the locations are still producing the unexplained phenomena today.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
And that's where it, and all we've done is probably dress these words up and these with new names and kind of, I don't know, sexed it up a little bit. I mean, yeah, and you're saying with ufology, and there's new things coming out every 6 months, every couple of years. The Immaculate Constellation, which is a paper that somebody's written, as you know, Chris, and people in chat will know a lot more about it than me. But it's great. But there'll be something else, and there'll be other papers, and it's like ufology's new toy, and what they call it, the dog whistle, and all these different things. But they're all names and words probably for the same thing that ufologists were doing in 1940s, maybe 1950s, and earlier than that. We had a man in Bridlington. And I really want to do a lot more research on him, called Raymond Cass. And I've touched on it before. And he was he used to make hearing aids. I think he died in 1970s. He lived near Water Tower, just going out of Bridlington. Not that means out to you guys if you don't live in Brid. But he used to make hearing aids. But he was the pioneer in EVP. Just try it, people. Google Raymond Cass's name. And you will see that he was picking up voices and all sorts of things. And I'm not talking about on spirit boxes. I'm talking about this guy were doing it in 1950s. And what we're interested in, some writings and things that he were talking about, Chris, he talked about seeing anomalous lights out in Bridlington, in the bay of Bridlington and things. Didn't touch on Bempton. Maybe it probably never went. I don't think the guy were interested in UFOs, but he touched on strange lights and strange phenomena around Bridlington. So we're not breaking any new grounds, or I'm not, certainly. But, because you've got great people like him.
Yeah, I'm just to touch back on the fair for a minute. I'd be interested to what Joe would say about. I heard something. I was listening to something the other day, and ironically, it did come up it was a UFO podcast, but there's a guy that I listened to, and I'll be curious as to any of you guys know this guy called Tom Montauk, brilliant researcher.
Has he given himself that surname?
I think so. Yeah, I don't. That's
Yeah.
not his real surname. He's
No.
been around a long time. He's a brilliant researcher. But anyway, he was talking about the fair, and I'm sure it was that show, and I'm sure he talked about how there was once a relationship between the humans and the fair, and that they had trade, relationships and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it was fractured because of something or somebody. It was a body of people. I don't know if it was a royalty or a religion or something like that. This is way back, but I just thought I'd never heard that before, so I don't know where that information came from. But I'd be curious to see if Joe's heard about that.
Yeah, are you talking about Joe Hickey Hall?
Yeah.
Well, it'd be worth finding out. We'll reach out and see if we can get her to come on. Do you know there's a researcher, and I say with highest regard, Rex. I'll not say his surname because he just does not put himself about anywhere. And I probably get two emails a night off him every morning, and I have done for years. And the stuff that he writes, it is profound. It's absolutely incredible. And he says you can use anything I write, anything I say. And I'm no fear in saying it if he come on here, because I never have done it. It'd feel like plagiarism. But he's from Oklahoma, and he'll be listening to this. He'll probably listen to it later tonight. And he's had experiences whilst in Oklahoma. We've been friends for years. He's in UK. He's been in UK years, but he digs out the most amazing bits of research and sends me research. He sent me some in the Scottish Highlands, some really ancient tales in the Scottish Highlands where they said they were giant, hairy men covered in fur. As in, you'd think we were talking about Bigfoot, wouldn't you? You know what I mean? And it's fascinating. I will have to see, or for Truth Proof or for Last Transmission, I have to see if I could get him to come on. I even wanted just to do a regular slot with him recording his stories, because he's so unique in his thinking and the things he's seen and experienced and the thoughts that he comes out with. Really good. So yeah, well, that's a person who's probably never been heard, but that can talk far better than I could ever talk, or anybody I know. He's just really good.
All right, mate. Let's kick one of the questions off. So PW is saying, Paul, how did you cope with the trauma of abduction and keeping it to yourself?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Seriously, it is, because it was terrifying, and I sound like a broken record, and I think everybody who knows when they come to a conference, if I'm talking, I don't usually talk about the same thing. So I've done Night People. And unless somebody specifically said, "Could you come and talk about it?" I wouldn't do it again. So it's embarrassing when somebody like you've just asked, "How did you cope with the trauma?" Because I realise I'm repeating stuff to you guys. But once it's happened, it is trauma. There isn't a night goes by as a child. I'm not talking about where you're laying in bed waiting. You're waiting every bit of the night. Eventually you will go to sleep. You can't not go to sleep, but you're waiting in fear. And it was fear. I was frightened of my dad, and I didn't tell him. And I was frightened of my dad, but for different reasons. I mean, wherever he was his hands. Do you know what I mean? And so I didn't tell him. So I would lay there, and the fear of it happening. And the gaps in between. And I'm sure there's people in chat and people going to listen to this afterwards who can tell you a lot more. But the gaps in between it happening were probably immense. But it weren't every night. It were nothing like that. But it didn't matter, because once it had happened, your life is just tipped upside down. You're not going to leave bedroom when you want to go to the toilet in night. You daren't, even though nothing happened outside that bedroom. It were all the same bedroom, but I daren't leave that bed. And to the point of wetting the bed. It's just absolutely crazy. Lining, and we hear so many people saying similar things. Lining toys up. My bed were against wall, and lining all your toys up against wall, your soldiers and everything, to stop them coming through a wall. This is a little kid talking, by the way. And you're thinking you're off anything to offer protection. Getting that high up on pillar and bunching yourself in covers that tight and leaving a little hole to look through, just because you're watching for them. You never see them. You never. You're immersed. It's the weirdest thing to talk about. And there were years. I went years and years without talking about it, and I don't mind now. And it weren't because I was frightened. It was because it were embarrassing, because nobody believes you. Do you know what I mean? But you're not. You're in the moment. You're actually immersed in the moment, in the situation. It's upon you before you realise that you're just not ever ready for it. Just absolutely traumatic. And I'm not one of these people that say they're only here for what their own means and everything's bad, because some people have great experiences, and I'll appreciate that. And sort of, I'm not there to knock that. I can only judge my own experiences, which were horrific. It was absolutely horrific, and fear was the thing that, whatever they were, fear was the thing that they wanted to induce. They liked fear, and they certainly got it from me. I was terrified.
Do you reckon that it's left? I mean, I think I know the answer to this. It probably has, but it might just be down there in the deep somewhere. But has it left you with anything, any like PTSD, anything like that that you're not?
Well, I think it's got to be, Chris. I think that's what it. I think that must be what it is. Not so much now, but you know, the fear of it. As a little boy, gonna bed. I mean, anybody experiencing that, it's just horrible, and having nobody to talk to. Do you know? I think they call the guy John Priestland. He's doing a paper to present to doctors. Martin's in chat. If you want to put it, if I've said that wrong, Martin's not involved in that, by the way. But Martin's a doctor, so if I've, and he knows a little bit about it. If I've got the wrong name, Martin, correct me. And they're basing the paper and a lot of what they're going to present to the medical profession on the night people, on the book, and on what I've spoken about.
All right.
And when it happened in 1997 with the holes in my back, and once again I apologise because I know I'm repeating myself, but when I went to Bridlington Hospital and I'd got the doctor telling me that I could tell him in confidence who'd done it to me. You know, we know somebody's done this to you. These wounds are deep, and I don't know whether the words is deep into the dermis or something like that. Telling me this, and I'm sat there saying, no, I just woke up and I've just got these holes, and he's going, you couldn't have done. You just couldn't have got these injuries because they're very deep, and these are wounds, and you couldn't have done them yourself in your back. And I'm assuring him that's what it were, and he knew I was just lying through my teeth. But if I'd have told him the reason why I was lying, there'd have been something written down in a medical report saying that I needed a checkup from the neck up, wouldn't there? Let's face it. You know, so and some people watching this today might think it, but I've gone past the point. Sorry, Chris, I've gone past the point of worrying whether somebody believes me or not, because I know my own truth and I'm comfortable in my skin talking about it now. And if somebody chooses not to believe me, I can handle that, and I can respect it. Don't you know? Providing you're not going to start swearing at me and calling me names, but you say, "Unless it happened to me, I can't believe it." I'm spot on. I can respect that.
Yeah, I think by now, and I've spoken to enough witnesses to sort of form an opinion, that I think there must be something on the record about this type of phenomena, because it happens so frequently.
Yeah.
When I say frequently, you know what I mean? I mean a lot more frequently than people think. People outside of the subject, rather, think.
Yeah.
So I think there's got to be some sort of record of this, like these things, because these things creep up, don't they? Look at, like, take the big cats as an example. There would have been one sighting, then there would have been two, then there would have been three, then there would have been more dead sheep, then there would have been more dead animals, and then they would have gone to the, I believe this has happened, they would have gone to the vets and the farmers and gone, listen, that doesn't go on record now. That kind of thing. The same with the animal M's. We won't say the word, but when that started happening, you know that when they were finding the animals, it happens. It goes on record, or it doesn't go on record as this. But there's a body out there that is aware of this, and taking notes and keeping a record of these people.
And I would imagine that they will see if this body exists, and I'm not saying it doesn't, Chris, it probably does. I would imagine that there's going to be pools of data where there's actually a deep pool of occurrences in specific areas or at specific times, even if it's all over the country, even if it's all over the world. Those patterns will be revealed. Obviously, we're not privy to that data. I mean, jumping away from that, I don't know. When I was looking into Wilsthorpe, I ended up on a farm close to Wilsthorpe, just asking questions. And this guy was kind enough to talk to me, and he told me that his dad had got a diary of strange events that had happened. He told me about a UFO sighting that he'd had. But he also pointed over to a field that were all... where animals had a lot... There'd been a lot of animal traffic. It were like slurry, and then the field outside of it with the square mesh wire with one strand of barbed wire along the top. He'd got sheep in it. There's a little mound on this field. It'll make sense in a moment, this, Chris. And he said one day, he says, I get up, and we'll not go into detail because we know YouTube doesn't like the graphic detail. He says, one morning I got up, he says, and there's a sheep on mound in field with all slurry, all this wet slurry around it. He says, and I looked at my sheep, I looked at it. He says, sheep don't jump. There's typical black brid bloke, and they don't jump, boy. Sheep don't jump. Don't, as in dain't. So he says, and I went to barbed wire. There's no wool on barbed wire. It's not gone over barbed wire. He says, and I get closer to the sheep, and it's in a traumatic state. It's still alive, and I'll not go into details. Needless to say, it's very traumatized. Vet comes. Is it Defrick and as well, and the sheep is taken away. The police arrive as well. The police arrive, and he's saying, well, it must have jumped wire. He says, well, there's no footprints in sludge. There isn't a footprint anywhere near it. There's no livestock in that field. He says, simply because it's too thick with slurry and sludge. He says, where's footprints? He says, there's only my footprints there where I've gone to it. Oh, yeah, scratches his head, they take sheep away. He says, and I kept pushing it with authorities after they'd taken sheep away. He says, and they were quite firm with me. And he says, it jumped fence, it injured itself. That's it. End of. He said, never heard of, but there were clearly more to it than that. Nobody had taken it to try and harvest the sheep for meat, should we say, rustling it. Yeah. So maybe there is a cover up in places about these things, simply because people just don't understand it. It's like the lights over the sea. We know that they're in lifeboat logs, and we know they get all these call outs year in, year out. I've not got to see any for a few years because everything's digitized. Did you see the actual paper logs? But they were there in the paper logs. And how do they justify? And these are great men, by the way. They go out risking their lives to help people. But how can you justify multiple lifeboat services going out looking for boats and aircraft in distress because they've seen spheres of light over at sea, and then coming back and just writing false alarm with good intent?
Yeah,
it almost makes what they've been looking for a joke. Surely deep investigation should be going into that, but it seems to just stop there. That's where it stops, unless there's things going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, I think, like we've said it before, everything's compartmentalized anyway, isn't it? From the ground up. So these people may think they've got very good reasons for keeping these things secret at the bottom end of the pyramid, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's frightening. So Andy H is asking, Paul, would you believe it? Some family members watched the episode we did on Truth Proof. Turns out there is another haunted wardrobe on my mum's side of the family. Wow.
That's brilliant. And Andy H, the haunted, and it was when it's strange, Andy, and I can't remember who. I can remember it. Well, I'm sure it was Linny. One of Linny's family had an haunted wardrobe. And let me just be clear here, because Linny comes on Clifftops with me. He told me about the haunted wardrobe before Andy H's story, and he had nothing to do. I think it was his parents or his grandparents. If I'm wrong, Ian, you correct me, because I think you were in chat earlier. But yeah, what's that about then? We got the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. We got the films. Is it just the doorway? Do we focus on something so much that because we think there's something in this opening that we create, and via the thought process we create an opening for the phenomena to enter and exit? Is that too much to believe? I don't know, but it's interesting, isn't it? We tend to stare at dark corners, don't we, and look at doors that are slightly ajar. This is as children, you frighten yourself, don't you? You can do, but even as adults, some people do, don't they?
Yeah, I was talking to my mum a few weeks back, and we used to have, and probably, back in late 70s and early 80s. You probably remember. Do you remember the clowns?
Yeah,
they were a big thing, and we had one in the room. And I absolutely insist that it laughed.
Really?
And because I can't think of another time from being as young as I was until now that has ever happened since. So I just find it unusual.
And it's not one that you'd pull with a string and it laughs, then, is it?
That's a good point. I don't
Well,
think so.
no, it wouldn't do it anyway. But what I'm meaning is, it doesn't have any means of making a noise, does it? Usually,
that's a good question. You're making me think now. Maybe it did.
Well,
But,
not to worry.
But here's the point. I can't be certain, but the noise that it made was so unfamiliar that I would have put two and two together. If it was something that we played with and we pulled it and it did its thing, you'd just gone, all right, well, it would have probably still been scary.
Yeah.
But I just remember it so very vividly. And I were out of that room and I sort of met my mum on the stairs, like terrified, like.
Yeah.
But it just on that one occasion, I just remember it really, just odd, really odd. But like you say, the power of the mind, maybe we can terrify ourselves at times.
Yeah, I wonder with films, depicting terrifying clowns in recent times, it's in the psyche, isn't it? It's embedded with films such as The Werewolf. It's there, one of the most terrifying things, and people walk in woodlands in the darkness, and maybe them things are on our minds occasionally. I'm not saying that's the reason people see these things. I'm not saying we're imagining it, but I just wonder if we're the creators of the phenomena, or the thought projection that we put out connects with something that can give us the visual of what we're. Our darkest thoughts. Do you know? I don't know.
I think you're right. I think it can. I think the thoughts are frequencies, aren't they? So I think, like you say, it's a good point. Yeah, for sure. Rick Bennett, evening, Chris. Question for you: have you considered making a Wolflands type documentary about Winter Hill and the surroundings? Well, we're on with the Winter Hill documentary, and there is. I'm just thinking how many Dogman encounters there are in that film. I think there's 3, Rick, in that. Yours being one of them. And so on, obviously some UFO stuff and the flying cryptid thing that I've still got to record. But yeah, there's you could argue, that there is a separate film for that, and and an investigation. But
who were you doing that with, Chris?
That's with Mick McLaren and Lee Roscoe, the WIT team. Yeah, it's been going on a couple of years now, because I think they once had a lot of time between them, but Lee will probably say in the chat now, Lee's as busy as everybody now. It just seems everybody's so busy. Their lives are so busy now that we're struggling to get Lee, because Lee wants to be there and we need him. We want him in it as well. So we've got to do these pieces together. So trying to get a weekend when all 3 of us are available is
it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult.
Yeah.
I was supposed to last week be doing a bit of filming with Les, and I'd got day wrong Tuesday, and I went to Manchester, and so I were hoping we could have got a bit in this week, but I'll contact him hopefully later in the week or tomorrow, and we'll see if we can arrange something for next week. But there you go.
Oh, just to go back before we answer Andy's question, did you see there was a comment recently on I think it was on the documentary we did. Oh no, it might have been on Andy's video, and he was saying the UK have to steal our stuff. I'm presuming he was talking about
stuff.
Yeah, and I think he's talking about the werewolf. He was talking about the Dogman, and I just thought that was quite an ironic statement, really.
Well, whoever said it, if you're in here, you're probably not very rarely will you ever hear me mention the word Dogman, because I think whoever thought of the word Dogman, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think we're talking about the same thing as what people talk about when they talk about the werewolf. Only thing we've got to detach is that the Hollywood and movies and British movies have attached the full moon and silver bullets, and so when people talk about werewolf, everybody associates it with the transformation from man to beast. And I'm not talking about any of that. I'm not, do you know what I mean? I'm talking about something that looks akin to the werewolf, something like what Montague Summers a few hundred years ago was writing about. Do you know what I mean? Well, I think about 150 years ago. And, there's nothing new. I don't think we're stealing anything. And I just don't covet your information too hard. You get a life, basically.
Yeah, well, it's a European thing as well, isn't it? I think the werewolf, it's not. It's actually a European thing. It's not.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I don't know how you pronounce it. Is the loup-garou? That's French, I believe.
Yeah, I'm sure it's Greek, although a lot of the oldest stuff is Greek.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah. It probably is. And in Norse mythology, you got Fenrir, the huge wolf, and I can't remember his siblings was. I can't even pronounce it. Somewhat Magandi, and it's a serpent. But in Norse mythology, and Fenrir bit off the hand of the god Tyr because they chained him up, and the stipulation of being chained, it'd only be chained to see if they could break this chain if the god would put his hand in the mouth of the wolf, and the wolf bit his hand off. Yeah. It's brilliant. Norse mythology is absolutely brilliant. I'm not saying it's all true, but it's interesting. Let's put it that road.
Yeah. Joe, this is an interesting question, Andy. As a child, we had mushroom circles on our lawns, and my mum called them fairy rings in Ireland. They have a circular fairy force. Do you think that maybe crop circles are the making of the fair?
Do you know, Andy? I've never really thought about that. It's interesting, isn't it? I think a lot of crop circles, and you probably think same as me, are the making of men with boards just tramping around in fields, but not all of them. So yeah, you make a good point, but I don't know. What do you guys think in chat?
I don't think I've ever. I mean, then again, look, I can't profess, and I think you're the same, Paul, that I've ever really done any hard research on crop circles.
No, not at all.
But I haven't heard that said before. So that's
haven't. He's groundbreaking. His Andy tonight. He's good, isn't he? I went to see a crop circle at Rudston on condition that I didn't show anybody, just a farmer that I knew. And I wrote about it years ago, and I got to see it, and it was just a circle. There was nothing elaborate in it, but that was interesting.
Yeah, it's. I think it is another consciousness doing it. Whatever consciousness it is, to me anyway. Chris, is the Bempton Phenomena documentary available anywhere? Yes, it is. It's available on Billy Carson's Forbidden Knowledge TV network. And I think, don't quote me, but they were doing 7-day free trials. So if you did want to watch it, just do the trial, watch it, and then you don't have to stay a member, as far as I know.
Yeah. Which is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, that'd be worth doing. And so Mark Anderson's idea of having counselling service for people who've had paranormal experiences that have left them with PTSD is a fascinating. It is, Stan. And, there were people doing it decades and decades ago, but not many. So I think there's a place for it. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a place for it. And it's certainly more palatable now than it would have been I'd say like 10 years ago, because, everything's changing really fast. But I think this genre in particular is rapidly changing. I think it's being rapidly manipulated at the same time.
Yeah,
and we are along with it, but as long as you're aware of that, we can sort of dodge it and bob and weave and move around it, can't we?
Absolutely, yeah. Question,
Mika. Question: do you think that the big cat sightings could be of an interdimensional entity? We've talked about this before, haven't we? Like you and I think just when we've been out and about.
I think, Mika. I think that in most instances, these are real, genuine, bona fide big cats, not big as we're talking lions and tigers, but a big cat of some kind. And there's enough of them reported around East and North Yorkshire. But you make a good point, and I think Chris knows where I'm going with this. There's a little there's a mile-long lane between Bempton and Bridlington called Short Lane, and you've only got fields either side of it, so you've no dense woodland. You've got an hedgerow running down one side of the road that's just hawthorn. It's broken up. There's nothing could hide in it, and you've got nothing on the other side apart from grazing land for cattle. Yeah, over years when I was going through archive, and from people walking short lane, they've seen big cats on it, big black cats. So, and I always used to think to myself, why there? It don't make sense. There's no cover. Lady walking a horse from Bempton to some stabling, and she just rounded the corner on short lane, and it's laid in grass. But it clearly were real. Said its tail was flicking up. Horse knew about it and didn't rear up, but didn't like it. But she walked past this thing. It were in field, in grass, and carried on a journey. Just like the lady at Danes Dyke, Charlotte, who late last year or early this year walked around Danes Dyke with me and showed me where she, with a dog, walking one morning. She's, the steps as you go up the sides of Danes Dyke front beach.
Mm-hmm.
I think you know what I mean, Chris, on that top bit. And she said just before steps, there's a big cat, a big black cat just laid under a hedge. She says, and I got my dog, put him on his lead, and nervously, we're not talking walking past it at 2 or 3 foot people here. She made it a wide berth and went down the steps looking around. And this is a lady, Mark Sturdy, it's his relative, and he put me in touch with her, and she was kind enough to walk round and sort of do the location. She won't go on camera, but she'd allow me to record her audio as we were going round, and it's just brilliant. It's just amazing the things that people see and experience.
A couple of scenarios attached to that. Do you think, obviously, are cats, big cats, possibly attracted to magnetic fields? It's something I have read about somewhere. Yeah. The other one being this strange phenomena that does present up there. Would it on occasion present like some of the, I'd say Native American, for want of a better culture, just trying to choose one off the top of my head. You hear that these things can present as animals.
Yeah.
Or spirit animals and that kind of thing.
It'd be fascinating if that's the case. I don't know anywhere that could anybody that can offer proof of that, but let's face it, what proof can you offer of anything that you're talking about tonight or me? I can't offer no proof to nobody. I can show people scars on my arms, scars on my back, and I can say where they come from, but it's not proof, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's difficult, isn't it? Everything that you're talking about tonight, Chris, myself as well, everybody in chat, it's all anecdotal evidence. That's all this phenomena leaves us with, and that's frustrating. But we've also got this staple explanation that people say, well, in a court of law, there's enough anecdotal evidence here to put someone behind bars. There's enough to say that there's actual proof. We've got proof. When we go up onto cliff tops, Linny's got some incredible footage. I've took some incredible footage. We've got proof, but it's proof of what? We don't know what it is. We've got proof that there's something highly unusual occurring. We don't know what it is.
You got proof of something. And let's not forget, look, a massive percentage of physics is theoretical, but we don't look upon that with the same sort of distaste, do we?
No. I'm not looking at this with distaste at all.
No, I mean in general, and that's been purposely done anyway. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm looking here, and we've got 160 people in chat, and I know a lot of you people in chat who are sharing your information with us and your thoughts. Will have had experiences, be it UFO related, cryptid related, ghost, poltergeist, whatever. And your stories are just as valid as mine or Chris's or anybody's. But at the end of the day, there's very few of us. I don't know anybody that's actually got that tangible proof of anything. Like I said, we've got lots of footage, lots of interesting footage, and we can talk about what we saw, but we can't talk about what it was or the point of origin or where it comes from, because we simply don't know. I know that there'll be people in not necessarily in this chat, but in other chats that will tell you what star system these things come from, and then they'll even have names. And I don't know. I just don't know how you know that, unless these beings and these have imparted that knowledge, because there's a lot of times people are coming out with all this information, and if you actually pressure them and say, where you got that knowledge from, they don't know themselves.
Stan Smith saying, out on Sunday night in the area we've been investigating in Royal D side, I saw 3 lights just below the tree line. As I was driving, a tree obstructed my view for a split second, and then they were gone. Yeah, so common. So common.
Absolutely. And I'd like to bet, Stan, that they were amber in colour, those lights. And the guy, Nigel, I'll not say his surname, was travelling home to Driffield, and I think it was last night. And I've just wrote it down. I've just wrote Cottam down. And he saw a huge orange sphere close to Cottam. That's in East Yorkshire, for those of people that don't know. And once again, I'll repeat in locations. 2004, probably maybe a bit earlier, to 2007, 8 and 9, myself and Steve Ashbridge spent years up at Cottam documenting these lights. And obviously, I mean, Nigel talked about it this morning. He sent me a message, told me what he'd seen this morning. And I thought, and it was at Cottam, and I thought, yeah, that's the location again. It's probably worth not going up because he's had a sighting, but as regards lights and strange phenomena like that up at Bempton, it's been a bit quiet. But saying that other things have been happening where we used to look to the sky. There's things happening on the ground. There's strange things happening, and whatever it is, it's a sneaky phenomena. It's a sneaky thing. It's everything. If it's pushing people, which it does, in the back, nothing, never front. Do you know what I mean? If you hear your name called, it's when you look round and there's nobody there. Nothing faces you. It's always, when it catches you off guard. It's just a strange place. I mean, the strangest one was the spike. I mean, Chris Mack were in chat earlier asking about Bempton phenomena, and it was Chris that were up there that night with Daz when Daz saw that the spike come up out of the ground, the blue spike. And if you've not seen that, if you're in chat and you've not seen it, just go into the YouTube, Last Transmission YouTube after this and have a look at it, because obviously we haven't got the spike. Chris has just done an AI kind of representation of what rendition, yeah. But it's interesting, and to get this guy's views on what he'd seen at the night it happened, and his hands were shaking, and saying, "I can't believe I'm talking like this. Can't believe I'm saying what I'm saying." And this bloody spike of lights just come up out of the ground, and I didn't get an height on it. I thought we were talking 12, 15 foot, 80 foot in air. He said roughly.
Someone mentioned in the chat, I think that in the comments rather, about something similar being seen at Skinwalker over the last year or two.
Really?
So, yeah, I've not followed it up.
I expect we'll get accused of stealing that then from America, but unfortunately we didn't see it. Somebody else saw it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's the one I'm thinking about, I don't think it fits an 80-foot tall, or acute triangle.
Just when you think you're not going to see or hear anything different, that something like that occurs. Because he said it came up at first as two thin blue lines. I know that's white, but at sort of that angle, and another one at the other side, and dark blue, and then suddenly the inside of it just filled in with what looked like glistening hammerite paint, just all moving, and it were like tipping towards him. Came up, disappeared, came up, disappeared, and that was end of it. And I mean, that's not like an anomalous blob of light or a sphere of light, is it? It's almost structured, isn't it?
It's still structured, deliberate,
uniform. It's uniform, and so that's interesting in itself. And as I say, I walked up to the location with him. Well, Linny came with me as well, and we met him. I think it was Monday night, and probably before then. But anyway, we just went through it, and they're coming again on Friday, hopefully. So that would be interesting, because I'm not saying that you'll get more information than what you've already got, but it's good to get people's thoughts a week, 2 weeks after event, and see whether they're still kind of shell shocked. I mean, Patrick is up in the area, Patrick Daniel, and he came and spent some time with us Monday and on Wednesday. And what he saw, and I can't remember, in 2022 when I was there, I didn't see it, but it still rattled his brain. It still sort of troubled him. So I'm hoping to speak with him tomorrow. It's just there's not enough hours in day, I've got to be honest, because we've got other stuff going off as well. Police today. I weren't in trouble with police, by the way, but we had to have them. It's just.
Actually, you just made a good point, and I don't know if everybody listening to this will heard the account. We'll just answer this question, and then we'll do it about the about the what do we call it? About the shooting incident, shall we say?
What's this?
On you.
Oh, on me. Yeah.
We'll follow that up. I'll just do this question and then we'll do that one.
on.
So, Paul, did you have nosebleeds or any implants come out? A lot of abductees have sinus problems due to implants.
No, I do recall. Not that it probably weren't connected. Do you know when this was happening at PW? When this was happening as a child, I didn't know what it was. How could I? But this is. I was born in 1962, so this is probably 1966, 67. I'm 4 or 5 years old. I weren't sharpest tool in box when I went to school. I'll be honest with you. Now, my parents, I didn't have a great education. So what I'm saying is, we didn't talk. We didn't have an house full of books. We didn't sit down discussing things. So there were no outlet to discuss what were happening for me on any level. So I didn't know. I didn't know. Put that question up again, Chris, if you can, please. If you can't, it don't matter. I've lost my
Talking about nose. Did you have any nosebleeds?
Oh, yeah, no, but I recall my dad when he came out of RAF, because he were a motor mechanic, and I recall him working at Smith Brothers in Mexborough. And I remember sat on my own at this garage just round back of these old terrace properties, and feeling real strange with my nose, and my nose did start bleeding, but nothing implants. I'd probably just got a nosebleed. A little kid probably picked my bloody nose or something. Do you know what I mean? I'd just no idea. So no, I've nothing. I worked with a joiner, while I've been in Bridlington. I'll not say his name, who had many sinus problems, and he went in the end. He went and had an X-ray, and they found a tiny little perfectly round bearing type thing right up there, and they said he'd just got to leave it. They didn't want to operate or take it, whatever it was. They didn't know what it was. Yeah, I remember him telling me about that. But we can read all sorts into it. It could have been out that's just ended up a seed, even. You know what I mean? Anything that could have ended up lodged up in his nose. But not everything's unexplained phenomena, is it?
No, absolutely not. No. So just for those that don't know, because I've not heard you talk about this a lot, and it kind of, I don't think it happened long after we were doing one of the films, weren't we? Can't we? And because you took me up there, didn't you? Quite soon after it had happened, yeah. I think.
You're on about the shot, the gun shot.
Yeah.
Just before I do it though, I've seen our Laura's in, so good to see you, Laura. Dog, Tanyan, Liam. PW, we've done Rivington Park, we've done nicknames, we've done Andy's studio. It's not moving up quick for me, people, so I do apologise because I know there's like 170 people.
Dog Tanyan.
I'm just Dog Tanyan.
Oh, Dog Tanyan. I wonder if you ever watched it, Dog Tanyan.
I've never even heard of it. Obviously it's a cartoon. It's passed me by.
It's a cartoon about the Musketeers called Dog
Ben
Tanyan.
22.
Quite a
Ben. And so I think it was 2019. I could be wrong. It can't have been, because that'd have been COVID, wouldn't it? Well, regardless of when it were, we'll say what I'd been up there to take some pictures for Ian, who's a police officer who'd gone up onto the cliff tops during the night, walked all the way to the trig point where Chris Mack and where Daz had their sighting. Daz had the sighting of the spike. So they'd gone to the ice point, the 420 point, and he's there, stood near the concrete post that's just on the edge of the cliffs. And he looks down the path, and it's night time. There's no fence up there, remember, and it's a 420 cliff. So you've got to deep cliff. You've got to stay on the path. I think he said about 40 yards in front of him. And, apologies for doing the story again, people. But then we'll get to what happened. A maroon light lit up, I don't know, just above the grass. And the grass would have been about 16, 18 inch either side of the path. And it's quite big. The influence it's giving, like a mini car size. And it's got a tight band around the middle, which is darker than the maroon light. And he's puzzling by it. And I'm not sure if he said, I went down for my phone or I went down for my light, just there. Looked down. And when he looked back, it had gone. But it replaced itself by 3 neon lights, brilliant white. 2, and then middle one a bit higher. this bit always fascinates me with everybody's reports. He said they were hard to look at, but they weren't illuminating any area around them. So I find that fascinating. Oh, stayed a few seconds, they'd gone. He set off running, and he's a fit bloke. And so if he said he set off running, he did. Because he's not looking for UFOs. He's not thinking that. He's thinking there's somebody like on a quad bike and they've seen tail lights of a quad bike. He's just trying to think of anything. There's somebody laid in grass with some strange light. And he sets off running and he's looking all the way. And he ran all the way to the RAF base, just to where the corner is. Nothing. That's when he got in touch. That's when he got in touch with me. And I went up there later in year. I didn't go up there the same week. I went up later in year, but it was winter because it was a beautiful day. It was a really bright, sunny day. And I parked at Bempton, walked up what's called Hoddy Cows Lane. Now, you people are going to have to Google these if you were remotely interested, and you can get to cliff tops. Walked and took my photographs because he didn't know what it looked like in daytime. There's no buildings there. There's no lights. You've got literally miles and miles of nothing. You've got the North Sea to the left as if you're facing down, and you've got farmland to the right. So there's no mistaking anything that could have lit up. And I took the photographs and I'm walking back down Hoddy Cows Lane. I've got Mary's little dog with me. And it goes on a bit of a dog leg. You walk down from cliffs and then you kind of take a right and another sharp left. But anyway, I'm on that bit, the first right. And in the field to my right on cliff tops, but a long way away, there was a fork truck putting bales on. They were baling. There were bales stacked in field at various places. They were that far away that the people looked little. But I had seen a deer, in the field. So literally just went straight past me, the velocity of a bullet. Most people know what that sounds like. There's blackberry bushes to the left of me and all nettles and that square fencing, what they use for sheep, but that would just separate in field. And it went into undergrowth and made a noise. And I knew that a bullet had just passed my chest. It literally made the noise. I can't make that noise, but it made that noise. And I just dropped to my knees, literally dropped to my knees and started shuffling along. And then I stood up and I rang the police, 999. And I told them what had happened. This is the response is amazing, because let's assume that there hadn't been a bullet past my chest and I were lying. They still shouldn't have done what they did. And there'll be a log number, so I'm quite happy to stand by what I'm saying now. Can you hang up and ring 101? All right then. Yeah. So and I'm stood there like a fool. So I rang 101 and I went through loads of options and then just stood waiting. And I thought, this could happen again. I'm going. And I went home. And then I rang when I got home and told them what had happened. And it took the police about 6 weeks to visit me. But regardless of what, they never said what they thought of it. But regardless, that were a firearm that had been discharged. I never heard it. I only heard the velocity of it past my chest. And I went up after that. My friend Steve Beadle, I rang Steve, and we went up because with a spade, and I intended digging into I knew where it had gone in, digging into the undergrowth, and I didn't know at the time that behind all these nettles and behind all barbed wire running along top, so I couldn't get behind it to do it anyway. But I went up the same day. I went back to try and retrieve whatever it was that had gone into it into ground, and I said, we'll go back with a metal detector, but you still couldn't get to it. So that's the story.
What I find a bit odd about it, I mean, like you say, it could have been someone taking a shot at the deer, but you didn't hear the shot. But what's odd about it, if I remember correctly, where you're stood, though, let's say you're stood and the blackberry bushes are behind you, the field's in front of you, that field runs up.
It runs up, yeah. It runs up.
How can a bullet come over
I have to go over hill or being shot from sea. It were ridiculous. There were nobody. I couldn't see nobody. There was bales, piled in field and that, but I couldn't see anybody. But all I could think that it was a stray bullet from somebody taking a pop at a deer or a hare or a rabbit, but the velocity of it just literally went past my chest. So, yeah.
You'd probably be able to find that with a metal detector, wouldn't you?
You would, but there's where it impacted, because the ground goes up, there's a fence in front of it, which there's, you know, the 6x4 inch square wire that they use to separate fields with barbed wire on top, and behind that it's just thick brambles and blackberries. Do you know, so to get behind it, you'd have to clear all that as well first. It'd be a mammoth job.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it could well just be an accident. But it's just interesting that at the time what you're investigating, and of course you've had the notes pushed under the door telling you to stop investigating things over the North Sea. Events over the North Sea. You've had the phone call. You had another phone call a month ago, didn't you? A message over the phone.
I did, and we also, with the events over the North Sea, we actually, the warehouse where the fishermen on Bridlington Harbour, they've all got. The ones that are fishing out of Bridlington Harbour, most of them have got a little. It's not a store; it's a little working area under the harbour top, and where they make the lobster pots and repair all their things. But there's a bigger area where some of them will work together. And I was sent a voice. Somebody had left a voicemail on our phone, and it was lads working in that area. A lot of fishermen just talking about fishing. Talking about nothing to do with Unexplained, and it was just left on my phone. I recorded it and took it down there and played it to Tom Quinn, and I don't know if Dave was there. I certainly played it to Tom. He says, "What, you've been recording us for?" I says, "I haven't." He says, "Do you know, it just weird?" And I mean, that's a bit of
intimidation. Do you think?
I think so. Yeah, you know, that case were interesting. You know, the tornado, that were an interesting one. They're all interesting, but you just can't. You can't. There's only so far you can go, and then you hit a brick wall. I mean, let's look at let's look at, but when you look at Rendlesham and look at how many eyes have invested time and minds have invested time on Rendlesham, and how much farther or further have people got over the last 2 decades? Really, do you know what I mean? Not loads further. And what you've got with me is just one person looking at Wilsthorpe, one person looking at Hummonby. Do you know? And it's difficult, isn't it? And then you've got the aircraft crashes over the North Sea, which at the end of the day could be just tragic accidents. But there's still unusual elements around them that's the little bits that pack around them that I find interesting. You know, the aircraft crash, the classic one for me is XS 894, which was September 8th, 1970, and that one's just fascinating. You know, because if it's a tragic accident, then full respect to the people who've passed away. But there's so many contributing factors that are unusual that are packed around it that nobody else ever found. Nobody ever found it. You know, Tony Dodd investigated it for years, but he never realised that just days before the RAF Marine launch, it's an unknown submerged object just off Bridlington Bay that tore the 25-foot by 12-inch hole in its hull. That'd be beached. We're not saying it's a UFO, but then just a few days after it crashed, a speedboat disintegrated and it hit an unknown submerged object. Do you know what I mean? And then we've got the bungalows on top there at Flamborough talking about seeing strange spheres of light. Then we've got Dean, I think I'll not say his surname, Dean, who then became the butcher at Flamborough, you know, a butcher's shop. But as a schoolboy, they went to look at the landing traces early September 1970, where a UFO, a flying saucer, they said, landed on the cliff tops in a field just back at Lighthouse, actually. Back at golf course. And what's interesting is the farmer got a visit from people in suits asking him to plough it out, get the tractor on, plough the traces of it out. You know, so, you know, for something that doesn't exist, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they're going through a lot of effort to hide something that doesn't exist, apparently.
Well, what the people in chat think, because UFOs don't exist, right? That's what we're told. They don't exist. Well, in recent times, we've been told that there is something to it, but the common theme that they wanted you to believe only a decade ago was that they don't exist. So what are the governments of the world hiding from us regarding UFO/UAP if they don't exist? Because now we're finding out that they've had such a black budgets. I mean, it's nothing new, but we've, you know, millions, perhaps trillions of pounds spent investigating things that don't exist. Is it just, do a lot of people in chat think it's just secret government tech weaponry that just can't be exposed because of the national security interest, and we want to get the edge on our opponents. I don't know if that's the case. Then we've been doing it. I don't know. These things have been reported long before the governments of the world started investing large amounts of money hiding and keeping this under wraps, so to speak. Do you know, an hour's gone here. We've just been crackling on about notes, haven't we, really?
Well, you brought something up, actually. Today, you sent some notes over about the Pentagon have just leaked that they had a program to debunk this, or rather send stories out there, so basically disinformation stories, all sorts of information to muddy the waters, which is what they do now. They don't. I think they learned 50 years ago probably that if you just come out and deny it, you've only got two options: it either happened or it didn't. So now they just throw 12 things at it, and we all argue amongst ourselves about the 12. And it's perfect, really, isn't
it? And what is the reason then for denying it? Is it because so a lot of it is our own tech that they're developing, and they're quite happy for people like you, Chris, me, people in chat to go along with the belief that a lot of this is some kind of visitation from some other sphere of existence. And I'm not saying it isn't, by the way. I believe that these things are happening, but could some of it be military tech that they're quite happy to mask under the guise of it's UFOs? Let's just throw all these, like Chris has just said, let's throw all these red herrings out all over the place, because you're going to get plenty of people snapping at it, the ones that fit their narrative,
Yeah, well, today I had a Jehovah's Witness knock on the door, and more often than not, we miss him because I'm out or I'm working or whatever. Anyway, he's a really nice guy. He's Donald, he's called. Anyway, I thought I had 10 minutes with him today, and we were just talking, and he said to me, "Why do you think the world is in?" That was his first question. He barely introduced himself. He just said,
"Right,
can I just ask you, really nice fella, why do you think it's in the state it is, the world today?" And going back to what you said about why they're hiding this stuff, there is a school of thought out there that whatever or whoever is behind the whole charade, that there's a movement there that is meant to be evolving us, in terms of consciousness. But I can believe that. I can believe that this group are trying to do that, and of course, there's a group working against them, because there's always duality. I think that's the way it goes. I just find it. I just think that wouldn't there be an easier way of doing it? Do you know? And then the argument against that is that, well, humanity has to be willing to look. So, from what I gather from that is that if you're not willing to look, that you just go around the reincarnation cycle. You just keep going around until you learn that you are willing to look, or you are willing to engage with this idea of expanding, like spiritually and
as individuals, our own consciousness. Is that what you're saying?
Well, as an individual, and then as a collective, because you'll all be vibrating, and that's the kind of, sounds like a new age statement, but it's kind of true, And the reason I say it's true is because if you look at the world now, we're all vibrating, or a lot of us are vibrating in a very negative state, and that's exactly the way they want it, which is why the world's in a pretty grim at the minute. But we're not entirely powerless, in my opinion. I think we're up against it, but we can do something about it. I think
there'd have to be movement en masse, and you can't harness all. You can't harness all of the people, because there's so many people got different ideas on, not necessarily just the unexplained, on what should happen and what's right and what's wrong, and it's really difficult, isn't it? I'm just looking there, so I can't see it now. There's a question. Somebody said it. I can't see it. It was Rick Doty's job to muddy the waters, disinformation.
I heard someone absolutely crucifying Richard Doty actually the other day, just saying that what his job was. And in the bigger picture, you could argue that. I think, look, you can always argue that what people like Doty were doing and people are doing now, there may even be one in the chat. There's one in your Facebook group more likely than not. they are told to some degree that this is for the greater good.
Yeah.
And maybe these people have seen things and been convinced of things and seen terrifying things that make them agree with that and go along with that. That's the way they operate, these people.
Yeah. And I think in most cases, a person's experience in life in general, not just with unexplained, shapes the path that they follow, don't it? Shapes what they tend to believe. But staying with Rick Doty, and Chris knows what I'm going to say now, so he's probably not going to please a lot of people, but I like Rick Doty. So, and I'm not agreeing with what he represents. Let's put it that way. All I know is that when I went to the conferences, no need to say which conferences, and spent time with people, that guy were quite happy to spend time and talking. And maybe he were just being nosy and wanted to know, but I found him okay. I'll be honest with you.
Oh, look, scale it down. How is it? I know, like, look, people always look at the Paul Bennewitz case, and I guess it was pretty bad, that Paul Bennewitz case. But if you scale it down and you talk about just a police officer, is the police officer the same guy once he packs his uniform away and comes home? It's not the same guy generally. Sometimes it is, depends on the kind of guy you're dealing with. But generally, I know a lot of guys that are police officers, and you know they've got to put the police helmet head on or whatever it is. Teacher, you know, the same principle. You know, it's
he's been over. I met him, didn't I? We're at Manchester.
Yeah,
and he's been over a few times to various places speaking, and he's contacted me. I think he thinks it's as quick as getting in a car and just driving 3 miles to go for a beer with him. You know what I mean? I just found him okay, and I do realise people that you know there's not a lot of love for the guy, but in a lot of circles. But I found him okay, and I do know what he's about as well. And we'll get him on here. He came on Truth Proof for me, and he don't do many interviews for people. In fact, when I came on Truth Proof, I'd got people, podcasters contacting me saying, "How did you get him on?" But he did. He came on for me. Let's see if I can get him on here. Would you like that?
Yeah, I'll be queuing up. Paul, did the paranormal activity in your house stop when the priest exercised it?
No, it didn't. No, not at all. It didn't, and I don't mean that he weren't good at what he did, because I mean, I think he'd done hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of exorcisms and blessings. That was his job. That was his main job for the church. If you type in Reverend Tom Willis, you'll find a lot about him. But it didn't stop. But you know, in fact, when he came, I mean, the bulk of the occurrences, because 1990, he stopped at about 14 years of age, and whatever years, do the maths, people. I was born in 62, so it stopped then, and then it started again in 1993 when I moved there. And that's why I sometimes think, and our lives are all mapped out. It's almost as though there is an external intelligence that's not necessarily guiding us, but why couldn't you ever get a picture of these things? Why can't we do these things? Well, you never would if somebody's mapped your life out and they know your every move and know and can actually, there's the greatest brain, or if you want to call it a brain, intelligence anywhere actually knows the next thought that you're going to think. How are you ever going to get a picture of it? I know people say you're moving goalposts, Paul, but it's just, to me, it was too convenient that from the age of 14, just about nothing happened. And then we moved up here in 93 and it literally just started. And I mean, it started before we even moved in, because I was coming up getting property ready to move into, you know, as my job as a joiner, and it weren't really habitable when we first got this property. So we're coming up every weekend. Friday, finish work, I'd be up here, and I'd be coming back 2 o'clock Sunday, you know, and it started straight away. I mean, I think Mary thought, why have we ever bought this house? Because she came up, and I think it was probably second time. Laura's in chat, she might remember. Well, she wouldn't remember at times, she was a little girl, but she'll have heard Mary talking about it. Went to bed in the house. Bearing in mind, we're just sleeping on makeshift beds, and we're in a proper state, this property. And she said, in the morning, you're taking me home, I'm not staying here. And the pillow got ripped from straight under her head, and it weren't me. Just literally laid there, and it just come straight off from under her head. All sorts of things happened. You know, they haven't been immune to it. Everybody seemed immune to it until 1993, and then girls experienced it, and so did Mary. Yeah, and now Bob Brown's experiencing it in top flat because I've converted it to 3 flats. Wendy experienced it when she lived in middle flat, and I don't tell occupants when they move in. I don't lie, I just don't tell them. Beautiful flats, they're nice. You know, they're not dark, dingy holes. They're lovely flats. Bob experiences things up there. Wendy does. Where I had that experience in 1997 with the holes in my back, that were our bedroom, and it ended up when I turned it into flats being Wendy's. And she came downstairs one day, rang our bell and said, you know, have you got a minute? And she said, is my flat haunted? I said, why? Why do you say that? She goes, because last night, and it's not even a haunting this, she had a little dog, a little Yorkshire Terrier called Buster. She says, I was in bed and Buster was at the bottom of the bed. He used to bark like mad as well. She says, and the bed went down. And I'm laid at this side and the bed went down. And I felt it go down. And she says, and I moved my feet and I could feel the weight of the dog, which was silent. She says, I went, who's there? She said, and this voice spoke to her and said, it were either Alistair or Alexander St. Clair. Not Sinclair, St. Clair. She says, and I had a conversation with this man. I didn't turn round. She said, and I don't know what conversation involved. I remember getting the name and I spoke to him and I had a conversation. And then, I'm not saying there's missing time, but then it's morning. I must have gone to sleep and it's morning. So that was Wendy's story, you know, and there's someone else in that spot now, but they've never said a word, never commented. If he watches this, he might be surprised. I don't think he does. But there's no need. All you're doing by telling people is you're giving them suggestion.
Yes,
don't go in that house, it's haunted, or don't go in that property, it's haunted. There'll be very few people on the road where I live that know, unless they've read the books, because I don't talk about it. You see this shirt? Today I wore this shirt to go out into town. I went to the post office. That's as much as I do that. These shirts I'll take to conferences. It's the first time I've ever wore a shirt like this out anywhere. Not that it matters, people, does it? But if you think that I walk around town with a shirt that says Truth Proof or Night People on it, you'd be wrong. Never. That's the first time today. But not that means absolutely nothing, does it? But there you go.
Yeah, I think we've said this before. Did you? Fortune's asking, did you consider moving?
No. We will be moving eventually. We want to move. Ideally, if I live long enough, if I can keep breathing long enough, I'd like to go to North Yorkshire. I know that there's a lot of activity at Bempton, but when I did Wolflands with Les and we started going into them areas in North Yorkshire, them forests in North Yorkshire, I kind of fell in love with the place. It's absolutely amazing up around Silfo and Broxer. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. We might be doing a podcast one night. You'd be sat there going, well, he always wanted to go to North Yorkshire, didn't he? Do you know what I mean?
Put your ashes in forest.
Put your ashes in forest, yeah. Somebody would complain. Yeah, but right, Jude said, and because it's not in caps, Paul, last name is St. Clair, one of the families. Let's have a look. I missed that name. One of the family's names. Okay, Jude. Thank you.
Well, Paul.
It just says Paul, last name. Paul, last name is St. Clair, one of the family's names. Mine's Sinclair, Sinclair, but St. Clair. That's what it was saying. She didn't say.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why it's in. No,
I don't know.
Yeah, does he mean one of the families?
I think it's a lady. This Jude.
Sorry, Jude. The St. Clair is obviously heavily tied to the esoteric.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Roslyn and further back, I believe it goes way back to the Vikings as well, doesn't it? I think.
I don't know. It was Andy Tong that did our family tree, and he found some interesting information out for us. But I'm not going to say I did the family tree and I found this and found that, but because I didn't. But yeah, fascinating. So, Chris, what we got here? What's your opinion on structures on the moon? David, I hadn't really got an opinion on it. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, the structures on the moon are fascinating, aren't they? But you get the Shard, which is the massive tower that they photographed and found there, and there's photographs of that, so it's not like, you know, there's no evidence of that. There is. There are other structures there, and then of course you've got the more obvious stuff that you've got the craft when they arrived. I mean, all right, I don't think they arrived when they said they arrived on the moon. I don't think, you know, I think you only have to look at Neil Armstrong's situation to know that there's something amiss there. Just after with his behaviour after being the first man on the moon, his behaviour didn't reflect that at all. He was a shell. He was a shell of a man, and whatever he knew or found out as in his time as an astronaut, I believe it terrified him. Speaking to people behind the scenes,
really, I didn't know any.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I mean, it changed him. So let's put it that way. Drastically. So a lot of people say, oh, yeah, well, that's because they debriefed him psychologically and they did some stuff to him. But there's no evidence of that. But I'm not saying they didn't do that. It sounds to me like something they may well do. But he definitely wasn't the same guy. And obviously, there's all Richard Hoagland's work about the stuff on Mars, on the moon and Mars as well. So there's structures up there. There's no doubt there's stuff up there. What it is, the moons are. That's another show, isn't it, Paul? We should get someone who knows all this. Mike Barrow is the man. Really. Mike
Barrow or Simon Lewis, who's written 2 books, The Two-Faced Moon, and I don't know what the second one is, but he's quite knowledgeable. Simon Lewis, and a UK guy as well. Not that Mike Barrow's not just as interesting, I suppose he is. Let me just go here because he seems smaller. Jude says St. Clair's is the chosen family. It is one of the very special bloodlines, St. Clair. Thank you, Jude.
Yeah, allegedly it's connected to they reckon it's connected to the Merovingians, and the Merovingians were heavily esoteric and occult. And when I was doing the MyLab stuff with the reptilian stuff, I had 2 people that were connected to that bloodline, French nobility, right, going way back. So I suspect there is definitely something. And it makes sense. Look, we all, whoever we are, if you whether you believe the stuff about bloodlines or what, we all share that DNA with someone going as far back as you can get. And it seems to me that there has to be multiple sources. So fascinating, really. I think that's part of the secret, you know. But there you go.
Okay. So and she said again, Paul, I think his bloodline could be why he has the special interest and gifts for affecting the other side. Paul, I think, is bloodline and could be why he has the. I don't know you're applying it to Jude. Sorry about that, but.
Yeah, I think what Jude's saying is you've said it yourself that you don't talk about it much, but you think you've got slight clairvoyance, don't you, and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, you know, you don't know where to start and where to stop, do you? Do you know what I mean with these things? We've done a few experiments with the red light on cliff tops, and you kind of know what's going to happen. Now that's not clairvoyance, but there's something strange. There's something strange. I mean, the little experiments that we do up there are best left for when there's just a few of us. Not that we don't want to include other people, but there's a set group of people that go up there year in, year out. And, you know, as winter draws in, those set people will still be the same people because nobody wants to be up there when it's -5, -6, especially, you know, on edge at North Sea. And that's when we do, you find strange little quirky things occurring as well. But anyway, I'm rambling. What, Paul? You will be connected to an ancient past in your DNA. It's fascinating, Jude, because Andy Tong, Andy used to do guitar work for Alice Cooper. He's passed away now, Andy, last year. Lovely guy. But he did family trees, and he did my family tree based on something Whitley Strieber said. Whitley Strieber, I went onto Whitley's Dreamland, and just out of blue, he said, I think that you need to check out the Sinclairs or the St. Clair's of Rosslyn Chapel because I think you've got connections. And I mentioned it to Andy, and he did my family tree. And I got it printed out, and it showed that I was the 11th generational, he was my 11th generational grandfather, William St. Clair. So it's a big claim to make if it's not true, isn't it? You know what I mean? But that's what he said that the family tree depicted. It were a very old family tree as well. It went back to all over the place, all over the world, to be honest with you. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, going into Bloodlines, you can get that's a very dark hole you can get down, and then you start getting into these DNA companies that popped up about 15, 20 years ago that were profiling people's DNA, and that caused a real stir amongst the conspiracy world because they were talking about, well, of course, if you put your DNA in the database, they can, and it has been bled into movies. You've seen that where they're looking for certain people, and
Did you mean to say that? Did you mean to say that?
What?
That is being bled into movies that, you know,
No,
the DNA.
no. Well, there you go. No, poetic, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
But another very deep, dark hole that you can get into. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
As ever.
Yeah. There's Warren. Thank you, Warren.
Oh, Warren, thank you, mate.
And Zeno.
Doing well this week.
Do you know, at conference, it were great meeting people at conference, and it were good putting names. This is the last Awakening conference, people, and there's some people in the chat who went to the conference, and Zeno were one of them, and lovely guy to meet and spend some time with, and yeah, it were good.
I'm just wondering if there was a comment attached to that then.
What's your opinion on David Grush? Oh, well, I don't know. It must be terrible that when I just say I don't know, because it looks like I've not really done any research on him. And the truth is, Rick, I haven't. I listened to those congressional hearings, and if what he's saying is true, then he's a very brave man, putting his head above the parapet and sharing these things and his thoughts. But even then, he's handcuffed, isn't he? As in, he can't really go the full distance and tell us exactly what he thinks is going on. Because there's no protections in it for these people to talk about a subject that doesn't exist. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but I just can't. Just when you a lot of us are just a lot of people are just on the fringe of this stuff, interested in just the. You know, they spend 20 minutes looking at it and it's interesting. And when they get time, they'll have a look at it. But when you actually sit and think about how it's all unfolding and the way that podcasted, these big Sean Ryan and all these guys are being utilized as, you know, now because no one's watching the news, they're utilizing massive podcasters, Joe Rogan being another one of them. It doesn't make him a villain. It just makes him, he's just in a situation, found himself in a situation where he's going to be the hub where absolute nonsense is bled through. And I think anything that comes out of any of it doesn't matter. You know, often they'll say, well, this guy's got a background. Look at his credentials. And it's like, oh, great. But they're only, I've said it all along, they're only being allowed to speak because they're being allowed to speak. That's it. And they'll only be allowed to say
what they want them to say.
That's why the narrative is kind of it's a bit flimsy, isn't it? There's not really anything being said when you think about it.
No, there isn't. No, there's they're not giving us proof of anything. It kind of jumps back to what we said right early in conversation. You know, I talk about my experiences and we show footage that we filmed, but what is it proof of? We still don't know the point of origin where all of this is coming from, whether it's one singular source or many, or one source just pretending to be lots of different things in different guises. We just don't know, do we? I mean, I want to touch on that comment that you told me about earlier, not to pull anybody down. Earlier today or yesterday, you talked about a comment saying Paul, and then we'll get to Ellis Taylor. Paul's not bothered about writing books. He's too busy spending time on cliff tops. What was the comment? Yeah, I think it was you that told me. There was a comment in one of the shorts that we'd put on, and somebody had put like, "I'm not really bothered about doing the documentaries anymore. I'd prefer to write or writing books. I like to spend time with my friends with my mates on cliff tops."
Well, someone said that. It weren't me. Who said that?
I can't think who told me. Somebody mentioned it to me. Contacted me.
Yeah, you're always on a jolly, you.
Do you seriously? Whoever wrote the comment, and you know, please contact me. I've not got an argument about it, but writing the books. There's people out there writing books. Let me just set you straight on something. Whoever wrote it, and there's people writing books on UFOs, writing books on cryptids, who've never ever stepped into a forest, never stepped into the open and spent nights looking up at the skies or in locations where things happen. They've got it all off the internet. Would you sooner have that? Is that what you'd sooner have? Because people say, oh, Paul's boots on the ground, but I think there's a little bit more to it than that, because I actually get down and have a go at writing books as well. I don't just stand out in the open, but there's a time and a place for it. I've said it many times. And, there's going to become a time, 62, there's going to become a time when I can't get out into these locations. And provided I'm still breathing, there's plenty of time to write books, So I thought it was you that had mentioned it today. Somebody mentioned it to me. And please bear in mind, it didn't annoy me. But I just thought, what do you think then? You've got people churning books out all the time. Books a year.
What was the gist? What are they trying to say? Like,
they just put it in a comment like, Paul's not interested in writing any more books, and he's not interested in doing documentaries. He prefers to stand up on cliff tops with his mates. And I'm thinking, do you think that's what it is? In the winter time, it is horrendous. We stand in ponchos, soaked. Literally, under tarps and all sorts of things. Because, it doesn't choose its weather system if anything's going to present, and you're not going to capture evidence of anything if you're not there. And that's why we are managing to capture evidence of stuff. We don't know what that stuff is.
You're saying you're trying to enjoy yourself in your free time?
I think so, yeah. But it is addictive. But Ian Linney. Anyway, I just saw that come up. So let's have a look. What about this Ellis Taylor question then, Chris?
Yeah, do you remember when we were making
that guy? You're making a documentary with Ellis.
Yeah, he's a friend, great friend of mine, Ellis. And it wasn't Ellis that said it. Someone contacted him that I think that had knowledge in that area.
Yeah,
and I can't remember what they said, but they definitely said that it was a cult, whatever, that there was an occult presence there.
Yeah.
From what I remember, it's probably 7 or 8 years ago now, isn't it?
I remember that coming up, and I thought it had originated from your friend Ellis, but
someone told him. Someone contacted him and told him. Yeah, I think I might have that wrong, but I'm sure that was the case.
I think it's kind of common knowledge. I mean, when we made Bringing Down the Light, we interviewed a guy who just let us interview him from the back. Can you remember? And he was up there as a teenager in that. Oh God, thank you. Thanks a lot. I've seen a ghost. Yeah, thanks a lot. He were up there as a teenager with some friends, and they'd not long missed something, and there were circle of candles on floor, pentagram. There were no sacrificial elements to it, but that's what were on floor. And there were also a chest in one of the rooms with robes and hoods. And they weren't like bits of sheet with eyes cut out. You know what I mean? They were well-made garments. And if anybody from the area is in saying, no, I don't believe this, I can put you in touch with this person. And I can do even better than that, because he tells me it's still in his mum's loft, although his mum doesn't live in Bempton anymore. And Pete, who comes on cliff tops with us, he knows somebody. That's all I'll say. I'll not go into any more detail. But Pete handled one of these. He didn't get it, by the way, but he knows somebody who showed him one of these garments as well. So does that mean that there was a Satanist group up there? It means that something very strange were taking place. Let's put it that way.
And of course, we know the two go. I don't know whether they've always gone hand in hand, and whether the thing that sometimes the occultism gets
bloody hell. Yeah, sorry, I've got it now, but yeah, go on.
Yes, well, I was going to say sometimes the occultism gets tied in with ET, and we don't know. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that the occultists are not dealing with ET. They're dealing with something else.
Yeah, well, how do we know that any of us? How do we know any of us are dealing with ET?
Well,
how do we know? How do we not know it's just not demonic in nature? Just before we'll carry on with that, but it was Linny who told me on Cliff Tops, because I saw him go Linny. So, and I thought, what's he on about? And then he said it was me who told you. So it was him. He'd read the comment. Yeah. So about me not being interested in writing. I am interested in writing books, people. I have got a lot of work done on the USOs, the underwater objects. Well, obviously they leave water as well, which is called the sub-universe, the submerged universe. So I am doing that, but amongst other things, amongst caring for elderly relative and somebody else and other bits and bats, time's kind of crucial, isn't it?
Yeah, apparently we were warned. Yeah, I can't remember. I know that sounds really bad if it was a warning, but we get. I mean, generally, Ellis kind of warns me about quite a lot when he can. But it sounds about right. And we didn't actually. Paul and I had already decided before then, because we did an interview with a guy, a really interesting guy actually, and his missus, and I think we came out of there. Well, I did, and we thought, probably should leave.
It was dark, weren't it? It was dark.
Yeah.
And actually nice people, but his knowledge and what he'd been involved in were very dark. And I've kept in touch with them, by the way. They don't live where they live now. They live deeper onto Wolds. And I was given a book, weren't I?
Yeah, he wanted. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he gave you that.
Yeah, I was given a book. I've still got it, and it's an interesting book, all kind of hand produced. Let's just put it that way. It's not some you'll never find it anywhere else. But anyway, yeah, that was interesting, and that guy had a lot of knowledge. And then also, sorry if we sound like we're rambling, guys. We're not. It's not. I'm not meaning to, but we also talked to the former military guy whose job it was to spend time in East and North Yorkshire looking for evidence of extraterrestrial, if you want to call it extraterrestrial or alien visitation. And he was interesting, weren't he?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably another conversation to be had with him, I think, at some point.
I wouldn't mind getting him on here if he wanted to come on and just black his face out, just come on and just audio and have a natter to him on here, and even if it were only 30-minute conversation.
Why not? Yeah,
let him share what he was tasked to do whilst in the military. And he first contacted me probably 10, 12 years ago, and myself and Bob Brown went to meet him. Excuse me. And it was like a little James Bond film. He took us phones. He wanted us phones. There were nothing intimidating, no into violence or anything. He just wanted us phones, which he put in front of his vehicle. My vehicle was parked in front of us, so we weren't going nowhere, not in my eyes anyway. And then we just disappeared, walking in an open area. And he's talking to us about this stuff. He gave me a bit of paper and a bit of information. And then with a bit of coaxing, he spoke on bringing down the light. So, yeah, we're interesting, weren't he?
It's quite a big thing when you think about it. That's sort of one of the only sources that you've had, really, I suppose, up there that has actively said, I was doing this. This is real. This was going on.
Yeah.
And I don't think many people have. How would you know if you haven't seen the film? You wouldn't know, would you?
Do you know it was?
Thanks.
I didn't realise it was good bringing down the light. The documentary. If you've not seen it, have a look for it on. Is it 4BK TV?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still there. I don't know if they've changed name, but I thought it was interesting. There were a lot of good stuff in it. But then again, can I just do this, people? You don't mind, Chris, do you?
Well, I don't know. No, I'm not sure now because you're always just because you're just up there with your mates now all the time.
Yeah. Wolflands. It's available. Truthproof.uk, or you can get it on Amazon Prime. It's the film that myself and Les Drake made, and cryptid related. And I think it's brilliant. And if you want to buy the Truthproof books, same thing. Truthproof.uk. If you want to buy them for overseas, including the DVD, please go through the the eBay link. Then we can use global shipping, and they're also available on Amazon Kindle. And that's my little advert done. I'll be doing a Truth Proof, all being well, on Thursday. And back to Chris. Sorry about that, mate.
Have you got a guest sorted for Thursday?
I haven't. No, I have contacted somebody. I'm still waiting to get back because I had people lined up. I'm going to be speaking to Reed Summers, and I don't think there's anybody more knowledgeable on the subject of UFOs, and he's the guy that David Grush, who just came up, were sort of raving about, but talking highly of. And I've been exchanging a lot of information, a lot of correspondence, and we Reed Summers, and he were going to come on, and then with what's been happening with family members and things, it's just been put on hold. But I will arrange that. Talking to a lady who's who invests all her time in dowsing and crop circles, and weirdly enough, Maeve Calvert on the 29th. And if you enjoy it on Truth Proof, then we maybe can book Maeve to come on to Last Transmission a month, 2 months after that, because I'm sure she's got lots of information to share. So, yeah, where are we then, Chris?
As I can, yeah. Lee Roscoe, thanks, mate, for the contribution as ever. Very appreciative of all donations. So, yeah, we really appreciate that. 1423. Have you ever caught anything on psionics during daylight hours? Nighttime, I know you've had some success, but has daytime provided any evidence?
No, and there's a good reason for it. And unless it's just me and that little dog and we go somewhere up into North Yorkshire or get into Danes Dyke, I don't usually take the psionics. I take the Sony camera and the DJI camera. So, but time's limited. I mean, every day it's just packed with things to do for family members at the moment. So it's difficult. That's why a lot of stuff is caught on a night on a psionics. I mean, Linny's got a psionics, and he also bought a really good scope in week. I mean, we're going to have to put it to test. I don't know how good it is, but it seems good, and it shoots in night shot as well, and it films in. I think it films in 1080p. So. And it weren't cheap. It's not something that he's bought for 50 quid or something. It's, we've invested a lot of money up there. I mean, we're talking today about, I've been talking about getting another camera today to Chris. So, for my budget, I don't know about you guys in chat. For my budget, I feel like I've spent a lot of money on cameras and various bits of kit. And I know you have, and I bet you, I'd like to bet people in chat have, because if you're going to try and capture whatever it is that's presenting, you've got to give it your best shot. Do you know what I mean? And I've been so lucky. I mean, Tom Waters supplied me with some incredible trail cams, really good. And, just out of the blue, they arrived and they, although there's audio devices in Danesdyke as we speak, and there's 2 trail cams in Danesdyke, but come the winter, they'll be on a bar as a 4, giving us a full 360. Every time we go up there, we'll just place them in field and leave them till we go. Not saying we're going to capture anything, but you're not going to capture anything if you don't try. There's just one little item that you'd be using, and then these trail cams weren't cheap by any means. So I do thank Tom for that.
Yeah, and we'll not look at it just now, but I did take a look at that of Linny's dash cam, and you pointed out something really interesting in it. So at some point we'll talk about that.
Well, right, yeah, I realise that because we've got 20 minutes left, and I don't want to put you on spot, Chris, but I'll put Linny on spot. If he played it and just showed us a frame capture here, because I don't think you'll mind. We obviously you guys know that me and Linny went on Truth Proof. We went through this footage that Linny had caught on his dash cam driving home with myself a few weeks. No, it's probably longer, at least a month or so ago. Something crossed the road, and we gave an height comparison. So I was looking at, because I realised a lot of you guys will have been in Truth Proof. So if you weren't, apologies, because you'll not know what I'm talking about. It's something very big, over 8 foot tall, that passes the lights of the crossing that are flashing on and off. As the lights aren't flashing, by the way, but the height of those lights, and it passes. So we were all focused on that. We're all looking at that, and I'm thinking, I wonder where it went. So as we're driving up the road, I've put it into DaVinci Resolve and slowed it down frame by frame, and there's something stood in the hedge. Now I can see it, and you've got some better kit to clean this up. And I can see whatever it is that's stood in the hedge, and I thought, or at least I thought I could. And you've cleaned it up a bit tonight, and there's something there, isn't there? There's something definitely there. So if Lynn is still in, I don't think he'll mind, but I don't want to play it without him giving me a thumbs up. We can just show you the frame capture of it. But let's just see if it likes 20 minutes if he mentions it. If he doesn't, we'll wait till next week, guys. And somebody, Rick Bennett said Bobster. Yeah, it's not the Bobster stood there, no. Although he's a massive phenomenon in himself, you know.
PW, did anyone find James Casbolt and Max Spears hard to believe?
Do
you remember?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, the first one more than the second one. But I don't really, once again, PW, I'm sorry, but I don't have a lot of knowledge on them. We aren't going into detail. Did one of them go to prison? I think so. Yeah, I think one of them went to prison, and then other one passed away, unfortunately, in strange circumstances, and that's all I'll say. Yeah, so Linny says, go for it, no probs. So let's have a look at this. And you can, it might be difficult to get on, so
just let me
I'll tell you what, Ian, what I thought were inside at edge is a little bit clearer now. And bearing in mind, whatever past that light is over 8 foot tall, because Lynn is 6'2", I think, and he's reaching full height. And
it is odd that, you know, now I look at it.
Well, I went, as soon as he'd sent it, he came round to our house, and I said I'd drive him home because Elaine dropped him off. His wife dropped him off, and I said, well, I might as well run you home because I'm going to go to Bempton. I need to measure this. And he came with me, and you couldn't get it better, really, because I've got a picture of him stood there. But we didn't plan this tonight, guys, so the picture of Linny doesn't go with what Chris is going to show you. So before you play it, let's just give them a bit of context. Excuse me.
You're right.
Yeah, go
on. 1 second. So, you give them the context. So basically,
okay, we're driving home. Yeah, me and Linny are driving home, and he's got the dash cam on. Now, but it's the same. This is the same area, bear in mind, people, where he was following my car, my Honda, and I stopped about a minute later, and I said, did you see that? And he said, what? And there's a flash of red light above the car. Picked it up in the dash cam. But I saw it, and he says, well, I've got dash cam. It might have picked it up. We got it. I don't know. 10 months later, we're driving home again. He's following my car. He's flashing his lights like mad at me. He says, I thought your car had blown up because I just went round a corner. Huge explosion of orange light. He's got it on the dash cam. Now, I don't mind. Linny can come on, if not necessarily next week or week after, and we can just go through all this, because although we've done it, I think it's fascinating. So it's same area. Then there's another time that they're following my car, and Ian's with his wife, and Elaine says, did you see that go over that road? And you can hear them saying it while they're driving. And he said, yes, someone just went over that road. I've looked, and I can't. It's just on outer edges of the darkness. I can't grasp what it is. And then the last one, me and him are driving home together, and this thing goes in just in front of crossing, but we've got reference with the, like you've got your crossing lights when the barriers come down, and you've got these 3 lights that are punching out of that box either side at crossing. Well, that's 8 foot high to the bottom of it, and it's higher than that as it's passing. You can see it go past, and it's interesting.
Okay, I'm just gonna try something here a sec.
We weren't prepared for this, guys, so just bear with Chris, and we've got 15 minutes. I'm not saying we're going to sit here for 15 minutes, but
no, it's but you I don't think I even need to do that. I was just showing them something that's not necessary. Actually, thinking about it.
Okay.
Right. So we'll just want to show a still, yeah.
Yeah, show a still.
Okay.
Unless have you got access to the footage?
Yeah, I've got access to it.
Play the footage, and then we can. They're going to struggle to see it pass. I think a lot of people on Truth Proof struggled and you've not done this because nobody planned this tonight. But I'd slowed it down, hadn't I, about 4 times so that you could see it. But as I say, we never planned this. It was just that Chris had cleaned it up a bit today and said, "Yeah, I see what you're looking at now." So,
for people, do you want me to show? I mean, it's hard to see. Don't get me wrong; it's still difficult to see it running across the sign right in the distance.
I know that. I know that. Do it how you think, Chris. Just do it how you think.
So, basically, it runs. Let me just share screen.
It runs right to left across the screen. So, and if we can have a still of it, or a freeze frame at first, if it's going to play, right? Okay, guys. So you can see the two squares in the far end, at the far end of the picture. Obviously, yeah, there. It runs. You're going to struggle to see it as well. It runs, and it's past the. It's halfway up that screen, whatever it is, and that's 8 foot to the underside of it. But then Chris put the little mouse. Can everybody see this? They can, can't they? There's something stood in that edge there as we get closer. So just
it's already at this point, Paul. It's already run across the road, and
it's run across. I was going to say that because I can see it. I can see it now, but other people won't. So just
so we've got to just scroll backwards here, just in time. So you've been driving up. It's run across the road, which is very difficult to see because you can see how compressed the footage is. So it's run across, and it looks like it's come and stood in this field.
It must have gone over bank and stood in field, whatever it was.
Right. So here we go. We're going up. Just keep your eye
there. You see it stood there.
Yeah.
and now we realise that's not proof of anything, people, but that I show you. And that's clearer, Linny, than what I managed to get it. There's nothing there. There's no post there. There's nothing there. This is probably about 5 seconds after we've seen it run across.
So I think if I just
it's difficult, isn't it?
It's very difficult to see.
But I can see it. But obviously, Paul knows what he's looking for. Do you know what I mean?
I only saw it when you pointed it out.
Yeah, but it's there, and there's no mistaking it. And we drove really slow past that, you know, a lot slower.
I mean, it is very difficult to see. I mean, let's have a look.
It's okay.
I'm just trying to. Why is it not reacting? I think because I'm sharing, I've lost control.
No worries, no worries. We're just gonna have to go with what we're going with, and that's that.
Yeah. So if I just get the color up, if you just here it is there.
Yeah.
And if you can see, there it is. Whatever that is.
And seriously, there's nothing there. And what we'd been doing when Ian first brought the footage to our home, we were looking at those crossings and focusing on where we'd seen it cross about 5 to 6 seconds previous. And I just thought, I'm just going to see whether it's back, come round, and it's stood in field, whatever it is. And there it is. And I'm sorry if we're boring you people, because I do realise you're not seeing a lot. And how far back can you get? Can we get an idea of it crossing, or that screen's too small, isn't it?
Yeah, it's you struggle to see it. I mean, it's shut that down. So it's got it's so
it's gone. Yeah, it's gone.
Hang on. There it is. Can you see it?
Yeah, just. It becomes more pixelated, doesn't it? It becomes more pixelated when you zoom in, because it's just, people can moan about quality at dash cam, but the main thing is that without it, we wouldn't have captured anything, and it would have just been Ian saying, "Did you see that?" Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you can see it right there, which is you've measured it.
Yeah, you can see it. That's it. Yeah, yeah.
something clearly, and you're not even saying what it is, just saying
We've no idea what it is. But what's interesting, we know that it's 8 foot to underside of it. Do you see it pass? You've got it there, yeah.
Yeah, you can see it. I'm just going back and forth, and it does run across in front of the sign.
And that's 8 foot to the underside of it. And I think if there's enough interest, people we'll get Ian on, because it's not fair, because it's Ian's camera that's picked it up, and we'll spend half an hour on it, and Chris can get it up on a big screen, and that'd be better, Chris, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you got to accept that it's.
We can never get it much better than this.
There's not much you can do. I mean, it's nighttime, and the camera's not made for it. It's heavily compressed. It's dealing with, there's so much noise in the image. But
there it is.
So you're pretty sure there's nothing there?
I know there's nothing there. Yeah.
So that's something that you and Linny can you can check that, because I know you've got a few. Linny's got probably footage of this on a multiple occasion of driving up this road anyway, hasn't he, to reference?
Well, of the area, of course, yeah. Not of that thing stood there though, but yeah.
No, I mean here you can. Yeah. He's got. You can.
That's easy. We can do that tomorrow night. Do you know what I mean? That's easy. Yeah. Right. So I hope that didn't bore you too much, people. I realise that we've probably spent 8 to 10 minutes going through that, but it's fascinating because, like Chris has said, we're limited. We're never going to pull any detail out to show what it was, but it's over 8 foot tall. We know that because that's what the height of that light board is, and you can see it go past it. So
it's one of them, I think. We've talked about, and you've talked about, the next step would be, I know it's always about buying more kit, but the next step would be, because this is not the first incident. I think you and Lenny have had four incidents now. Four incidents at the same spot. So the next step would be to upgrade the dash cam to probably a night vision dash cam.
Well, I'm doing that now. Lenny, very kind of him, a few weeks ago, gave me a dash cam. I had one, mine packed up, and he gave me one. And I said to him other week, I said, I'm going to give it you back, because I don't want to just put it in a drawer and just claim it. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to buy a really, really high end one, like you said, because once again, we might be at a stage where we can show you guys something similar to that, but in a little bit more detail. So that's what we're about.
Might be worth, if you've got a passenger now in future, it might well be worth just strolling up the road and getting the camera out on the passenger side with, I don't know, an infrared torch or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Well,
when we've been driving home, and this is after the fact, guys, isn't it? But if I'm driving, I've got the psionic. I shouldn't say that. If I'm passenger, I've got the psionics on, and I just sit all in the psionics as we're driving, which. It's only 720p, but as you know, it's brilliant in low light, and that's what I do as we're driving, doing that route. It's still got the dash cam on, but we've not been fortunate enough. But there's been 4 occasions there now, and it's unmistakable. You can hear Ian and his wife saying, "Someone just crossed road." So we've got that bit of footage, but I can't. I've gone backwards and forwards, and I can't see it. I've clearly seen it because they both comment on it, but it's same spot. Or just a little bit higher up, when we're not talking a mile higher up, we're talking like yards over other side of crossing. So it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's yet again the phenomena has sort of extended its reach a little bit.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because the flash of light. I mean, I stopped the car. Did you see that? And he just turned around and said, I didn't see anything. I said, big red flash of light above car as I'm driving. And I saw it in front of car. For anybody that says, it's your brake lights, either me and Linny have planned it and I'll stop my car and then I'll say there's been a flash of light and then you create one on your dash cam. Do you know what I mean? I can't see behind my car, can I? It were there as I'm driving and there's a flash of light above car. And obviously Ian's following me and we've got it on his dash cam. I didn't even see the orange flash. Never saw that one. How I didn't see it, I don't know, because it looks like a light explosion. But
it's getting to the point. It's just getting silly now. It's getting to the point where this is obviously on 4 occasions now. This is not a coincidence anymore.
I wouldn't thought so. No. But why that particular area? That's just as you're leaving the village. It's called Newsom Hill, not Nuisance, Newsom Hill. And just incidentally, I'll tell you, we've got 3 minutes. Incidentally, Newsom Hill is where Mark, who comes up onto cliff tops to us, he always comes up a bit later, was stood talking to the guy who owns. There's a little small holding as you're going down, opposite to where we were going on your left hand side. And there's a couple of horses and some sheep in a field further up. And he's talking a few years ago to the guy with the horses, and he's just got hold of the horse and he's just walking it, I presume, to its stable or something. And suddenly the horse rears up in the air and he has to let go of it. Mark noted that all the sheep went into the top corner of the field, literally huddled together in top corner of the field. He says, and then all of the power lines, because on the left-hand side where this thing ran across, you'll note that there were some telegraph poles. And all of the power lines, he says, blue lights started dancing all the way along them. And we can find exact date because the power were cut to Bempton that night, that time, when it happened, he cut the power. He says, and the next thing, there's a huge crack. This is after the horse, after the sheep, and after the power lines are dancing blue lights. And a tree just splits in half and drops across the lines and drops them. Yeah, sure. That's odd in itself. But I've thought about it, and maybe the animals can sense static in the air or something, and that's why they reacted. And maybe the tree had started to part and were leaning on the power lines, and that's why we've got this dancing of the blue arcs of light. It's not forced to be paranormal. And then they finally cracked when the power lines broke and gave way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there might be a perfectly rational one for that. But, yeah, it killed 2 minutes. I'm only joking. No,
that's cool. Just saying, Rick Bennett screen cuts to Chris watching Cartoon Network. Yeah, Ulysses 31 I would have been watching, Rick. Right. What was that? Sorry, Lorraine. What was that comment you just put up there? Yeah, Lee Roscoe. Paul, has a report been witnessed before of a werewolf at that crossing? It's not, has it?
No. No. And let's be right, Lee. We haven't a clue what it was.
Yeah,
but what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a load of pictures so that you guys can be in the picture and knowing when it crosses, there's a wall that's 4 foot high, and then it goes up a bank to about 12 foot. Then there's edges in front of it, so God knows where it disappeared to. And there's a fence in front of the actual railway line, and it crosses in front of that. So I don't know how that works, but it's definitely over 7 foot tall, but it's clearly, we would say, over 8 foot tall, whatever it is. And it looks like it's hard, isn't it? It's grainy, it's poor footage. We realise that, but it's footage of something that's definitely between 7 and 8 foot, but I'd have said over 8 foot tall, passing that light, that set of lights. And then there's something stood in field literally 5 to 6 seconds later. I don't know how it works, but it's there.
That's very odd. Right, well, I think we're about there, mate. So thanks, everybody, for watching.
Tim Stoker, I've not seen you in before, Tim. And David Hunt, Tino. And what we haven't said tonight, and please do, if you've got the time, it'll literally take you seconds, press the like and subscribe. It's supporting us a little bit, and we do appreciate it. And that's as much as I've got to say.
Yeah, I've just seen this. Sorry, Lauren, it's not. It's just a comment. PW saying my UK cryptid testimony was read out on Facts by How to Hunt. Steve on How to Hunt. Thumbnail pic is another alleged Bigfoot in a field in Buckinghamshire. That might be worth checking out, people.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Yep.
To have a look at that. And yeah, thanks to Lorraine as well for moderating tonight, and thanks for all the donations as ever. And that's about it. Don't forget to check Paul out on Thursday.
Yeah, we'll be doing the Truth one on Thursday, all being well. And all being well, we'll have a guest as well. But if not, I'll be definitely doing an hour, and I've got quite a few accounts to share with you guys. So we shall do it.
All right. So I'll see you next week then, mate. All right. See you later, guys. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.